and said, listen, if he's going to be kind enough to want to play, then Andrew will play.
Let's play.
And he says, let's play, we'll play. But it's not us, it's nothing to do with him.
No, of course it's nothing to do with him. No, I understood it completely, understood exactly where you're coming from.
Yes, because if it's anything near him,
I do not want to get anybody in trouble.
but you will be his friend.
Right.
I will listen to the friendship talk between you two.
Right.
And then I do it.
Okay.
You two talk,
Right.
I listen.
Okay.
Then I activate.
Right.
On to the next thing.
Let's see.
£500,000 when you can to mean open doors.
New Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
Is that a deal?
Yeah.
There are secrets in this world that vanish because no one ever uncovers them. And then there are secrets far more dangerous, the ones everyone knows about, but no one dares to speak aloud. Those are the secrets that survive. Those are the ones protected by silence, by agreement, by power. And inside the royal world, silence is never accidental. It is chosen carefully, strategically, deliberately. For years, one particular story followed the royal family like a shadow that never quite disappeared. It was never officially denied, never corrected, never mocked into irrelevance, no lawsuits chased it away, no statements crushed it. It was simply ignored. And that's what made it different. Because when something is truly false in royal life, it's shut down immediately, ruthlessly. But when silence stretches for years, decades even, it usually means someone powerful wants it buried. At the heart of that silence stood Sarah Ferguson. Fergie heard this story early, long before social media whispers, long before online forums dared connect dots. She knew the details. She understood the implications. And yet she never rushed to correct it. Not once. She didn't protect the story with words. She protected it with absence. And in a world built entirely on appearances, absence speaks louder than any denial ever could. This wasn't small gossip. This wasn't careless rumor. This was a story involving a private yacht, a royal prince, and a woman who would later hold a duchess title of her own. 3 days, total isolation, and a consequence that, if true, could have altered everything before the public ever learned her name. This wasn't a story meant to surface. It was sealed carefully, deliberately, and for a long time, that strategy worked. Until silence stopped serving everyone involved. Because when the person protecting the quiet no longer benefits from it, the past doesn't stay buried. It pushes back. It demands air. And that is where this story truly begins. To understand why Fergie's silence matters, you have to understand who she really is. Not the tabloid caricature, not the punchline, but the woman shaped by decades inside royal life. She didn't need lessons on wealth or access. She lived inside it, married into it, survived it. And more importantly, she understood Prince Andrew's world long before the public ever questioned it. She knew the environments he preferred. She knew the circles he moved through. She knew yacht culture not as fantasy, but as routine. These weren't mysterious elite spaces to her. They were familiar, normalized. And that's why when later stories surfaced involving yachts, elite guests, and carefully controlled settings, Fergie wasn't shocked. She recognized the pattern because she had lived alongside it for years. That recognition is what makes her silence so loud. Inside royal dynamics, silence is management. It's how uncomfortable truths are handled without confrontation. If everyone benefits from not talking, then no one talks. For a long time, that balance held. Fergie stayed close enough to remain protected, the institution remained intact, and certain stories stayed sealed. But silence only works when it's useful, and eventually the balance shifted. When protection fades, loyalty fades with it. And when someone who understands the full picture stops playing their role, the silence becomes dangerous. That's why Fergie's quiet was never passive. It was strategic. And when strategy changes, so does the story. Years after that original silence was put in place, another figure entered the royal orbit. Someone the public believed was brand new to that world. Her name was Meghan Markle. To many, Meghan seemed to arrive suddenly. An actress, an outsider, a woman stepping into royalty for the first time. But to Sarah Ferguson, Ferguson, this wasn't a news story at all. It was an old one resurfacing. Because Meghan didn't enter royal life blindly. She had already moved through elite spaces, she had already dated within powerful circles, she already understood status, proximity, and access. And that mattered. Later, Meghan would tell a story about her first meeting with Prince Andrew. She suggested she didn't recognize him, that she mistook him for someone insignificant. A man holding the Queen's handbag. To the public, it sounded charming, almost funny, but to someone like Fergie, it sounded impossible. Andrew wasn't invisible, he wasn't obscure, and he certainly wasn't someone easily overlooked, especially by someone who had studied the royal family and would later marry directly into it. Language like that has a purpose. When people need to erase familiarity, they rewrite the beginning. They soften the memory. They create distance. And distance is usually required when something existed before the official timeline begins. To Fergie, this wasn't about misunderstanding. It was about separation, about drawing a clean line between past proximity and present convenience. Because once Meghan entered the royal story through a different door, the past stopped being harmless. It became a liability. And that's when silence stopped being enough. Because when proximity returns, history follows. And buried stories don't stay buried forever. To understand what happened next, you have to rewind. Not just in time, but in setting. February 2002. The south of France, off the coast of Nice. Not a crowded party boat, not a floating nightclub, a private yacht. And that detail changes everything. Private yachts are controlled environments, no strangers wander in, no accidents happen, everyone on board knows exactly who everyone else is and why they're there. According to the account passed quietly, Prince Andrew arrived as a VIP guest. Meghan Markle was already there, part of the social group on board. At first, nothing appeared unusual until Andrew arrived. That's when the dynamic shifted. Attention moved quickly, not subtly, not slowly. Within a short time, Meghan was allegedly positioned beside Andrew. Not circulating, not drifting, staying close. Observers noticed because it disrupted the natural flow of the group. Then came the withdrawal. The two were said to have gone below deck, and they didn't resurface casually. They didn't rejoin the group after a short absence. Meals were allegedly delivered privately. Hours turned into days. For several days, they remained separate from the rest of the guests. And when they finally emerged, something had changed. The atmosphere felt heavier, quieter, the ease was gone, people noticed, people talked, and even without a public scene, the story stayed with those who witnessed it. Because moments like that don't fade, they imprint. For Sarah Ferguson, none of this was shocking. It fit a pattern she already understood. But what matters most isn't what happened in isolation. It's what happened afterward. When the yacht returned to shore, the story didn't end. According to the account, contact continued, conversations, follow-ups. A sense, at least on one side, that something meaningful had been established. And then Andrew returned to London. And everything changed. Calls went unanswered, messages ignored. This wasn't drifting apart, it was a cutoff. Eventually, the barrier became formal. Staff were instructed to block contact entirely. Inside royal dynamics, this isn't emotional, it's procedural. Problems aren't argued with, they're erased through distance. According to the account, the attempts to reach Andrew became urgent, persistent. Something was wrong. Something needed to be communicated. And Andrew never responded. According to what was passed on, Meghan believed she was pregnant. If true, this would have been catastrophic. Not just personally, but institutionally. A child connected to a royal prince outside marriage, outside control, outside planning, and yet the response was silence. No acknowledgement, no engagement, just disappearance. According to the account, with no response and no path forward, the pregnancy did not continue. And after that, communication ended entirely. Whether every detail is true or not, this explains something that has lingered for years. Not just why contact ended, but why resentment may have followed. If even part of this story carried truth, it would explain decades of silence. This isn't a clash of opposites, it's a collision of mirrors. Sarah Ferguson and Meghan Markle share instincts, status, access, understanding how relationships become currency. The difference wasn't character, it was timing. Fergie learned the rules through loss. Meghan assumed the rules would bend forever. And that assumption is where everything fractured. Because when two people built on the same instincts fall out, the fallout isn't emotional, it's destructive. The moment Meghan chose distance over diplomacy, she didn't just step away from an ally. She activated a witness. Fergie didn't need proof. She lived close enough to recognize patterns. She knew Andrew's habits. She knew how stories were managed instead of confronted. For years, silence benefited everyone. But that balance no longer exists. And when the one person who knows how all the pieces fit together stops protecting the quiet, secrets don't vanish. They wait. And when someone with memory, motive, and nothing left to lose allows the past to breathe, even indirectly, the story no longer whispers. It resurfaces. And that is the truth the royal family has always feared most. And when that resurfacing begins, it doesn't arrive as a clean confession or a neat timeline. It comes in fragments, in tone, in hesitation, in what is said, and more importantly, in what is no longer carefully avoided. Because people who have spent a lifetime managing silence don't suddenly shout the truth. They let it slip. They allow it to exist. And sometimes that allowance is louder than any statement ever could be. Sarah Ferguson understands this better than anyone. She knows how the institution operates when it feels threatened. She knows how quickly doors close, how fast support evaporates, how loyalty is conditional and temporary. She lived through it. She paid for it publicly. And she survived it privately. That survival changed her position. She is no longer someone with everything to lose. And that is exactly what makes her dangerous to a system built on mutual silence. Because when fear disappears, so does compliance. What makes this story unsettling isn't just the allegation itself, it's the behavior that followed it. The coordinated withdrawal, the procedural silence, the sudden wall where access once existed. These aren't emotional reactions, they are institutional reflexes. They are the signs of a system doing what it has always done: contain, isolate, erase. And that's why this story has never truly gone away. Because too many details align with patterns already exposed elsewhere. Because too many people recognize the choreography. And because silence, when repeated for decades, stops looking like coincidence and starts looking like intent. For Meghan, rewriting the narrative wasn't optional, it was survival. Distance became necessary, reinvention became strategy. The past had to be simplified, softened, dismissed as ignorance or accident. Because proximity to truth can be dangerous when you're building a future that depends on perception. And for Andrew, silence has always been his shield. Others spoke for him, others cleaned up behind him, others absorbed the consequences. That arrangement worked as long as everyone stayed in line, as long as no one questioned the cost of keeping quiet. But systems like that don't collapse all at once. They crack slowly. They weaken when the people holding them together stop believing the trade is worth it. This is why Fergie's role matters now more than ever. Not because she's shouting accusations, but because she's no longer protecting the quiet with the same devotion. She's no longer filling the gaps with loyalty, she's allowing space for memory. And memory, once acknowledged, doesn't need proof to be powerful. It only needs recognition. At its core, this story isn't about one yacht, one rumor, or one moment in time. It's about who knew, who benefited, and who paid the price for keeping everything hidden. It's about how silence becomes policy, and how eventually that policy expires. Because when the people who once enforced the quiet stop doing so, the truth doesn't need to be screamed. It simply waits for the right moment to be heard.